Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest Sempre Milan bonus podcast on Substack. A revolution is fully underway at Milan this summer. We're going to be talking about the potential mass exodus and some of the star names that could leave and where that leaves the squad moving forward. Good afternoon, gentlemen, or good morning to you, just about.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just about.
How are things?
Personally, or
Yeah.
my fanhood for AC Milan?
Yeah, let's go with the latter first, and because that's going to be the subject of the podcast. No, how are you personally, both?
I kind of got to take a shit, but other than that, I'm pretty good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a week, man. It's been a week. Are we on Wednesday or Thursday? I don't even know.
Thursday.
It is Thursday.
It's Wednesday, my dude.
Thank God, because it's felt like Wednesday every day this week. Like you're just almost at you're like at the hump, but I haven't been able to get over it this week. So it's been a rough one. Yeah. This club,
man, could just leave it there, to be honest, and people
That's
entirely
the episode.
understand what we mean. Yeah, I keep saying it every time we sit down to record. I keep saying I've been hoping for a nice, quiet post-season month or so. Chance to get a couple of vacations in or whatever and unwind. Usually, all the journalists go away when the players go away, and there's not as much to write about. I can't remember a busier since last Monday when Tare got announced. It's probably been as busy as it's ever been. And I've only really got the window to record this because I'm not on this afternoon. Like, it's just been hectic. So much shit has been happening. Obviously, Tare has arrived as the sporting director. Max Allegri is here as the new head coach. We spoke about that in the main pod. But there have been some further developments on the transfer front. And I imagine we're going to touch on a couple of the potential incomings as we talk through each of these players. But it's going to be centered around three players in particular. The first is at a very advanced stage. In fact, it's pretty much almost done. Tijjani Reijnders to Manchester City. Then we've got Maignan, the captain, potentially going to Chelsea. Theo Hernandez potentially going to Al Hilal or Atletico Madrid. Rafael Leao's been linked with Bayern Munich. We should mention that too. There's been, I'd say, infrequent rumours about Pulisic being unhappy and potentially looking for a move. Really, the framing of this episode is going to be whether there will be a mass exodus, whether everybody wants to get out, whether we're going to have to start this project hard reset, from year zero, year 100 BC. And I normally come into these things with a structure, but I don't think it makes any sense to. I think we just need to riff it and dive into each thing.
Well, if the club don't have a structure, why do we need a structure?
Why should we? Well said, yeah. But it's more about how we feel about things, rather than trying to be too over-analytical about it. And we start with Reijnders because that's the one that everybody seems to have the strongest opinions on. I'll just relay the figures and then let you two jump into it. Athletic and most reliable sources are saying that it's 55 million euros fixed to 58 million, so somewhere in that range. We are going to get a guaranteed 65 million because there are some easy-to-reach add-ons that are almost a certainty. And the total package is 70 to 75, depending on who you listen to. Obviously, we held a lot of leverage in this particular negotiation, so I think the fan reaction has been largely
What leverage?
Negative. Well, should we start with that? I mean, I think that's an
we
important
bent over
point.
backwards.
Yeah.
Well, we had the leverage, but didn't use it, I think, is what people...
Yeah. So he renewed his contract exactly 3 months ago to the day of the Here We Go, which came either yesterday or the day before, until 2030. So we have him under 5-year deal. He's our best player, just won Serie A midfielder of the year while finishing 8th. That tells you what you need to know about his caliber. Obviously, we finished 8th, so we need someone who's going to be sticking around, who could help us get out of there. And everything points to, if you want this guy, you're going to have to pay big. And instead, he's not going for much. They also just signed a left back for 40 mil. A guy I never heard of. Doesn't mean he's not good. Someone else probably heard of him. But
Ait Nouri, yeah, he's
sure.
I like him. I would have liked him to replace Teo, but we'll get on to that.
Well, It's not happening because
It's
he's
not
also going to
happening, no.
City. So it just, I don't know. You see the transfers that they're making, and it doesn't match the valuation that they're giving Tijjani. It seems like you could be getting a lot more now. The people are going to rightly point to the fact that Tijjani is 27, is probably his last big contract. That's fine, but his value is still there. You look at when Aston Villa sold Grealish to Man City, and the president said, the transfer fee, which I believe was either 100 or 120 million, around that range. It was definitely that figure.
£100 million, I think.
Yeah, okay. £100 million, 120 million euros then. So they said the transfer fee reflects his value to our club, not necessarily the rest of the world, because there was a lot of scrutiny around how much money they spent at the time, if you guys remember. But that's something that has continued, is that trend of, well, he's worth this to us, so this is what we need for him. And that's the way it should be. When you're selling your best player, your top star, your big asset, and you have all the leverage, you get to name your price. There's also the fact that this is an early transfer window for the Club World Cup, so they're paying a premium to get him in early, and there's precedent for that as well, with Trent Alexander-Arnold already signing a pre-contract on the expiration of his deal with Real Madrid. Well, Real Madrid gave Liverpool 10 million euros on top of that for a player they've already signed, just so they could get him for this competition that no one pretends they care about, a month early. And that should tell you everything you need to know. Okay, they want him early for Club World Cup. They have the money. We know this is one of the richest teams in the world. He's on a 5-year deal. He says he's happy here. Now, obviously, Pep comes in. He talks to Tijjani. He says, we'll give you 8 million. You're currently making 3. You're going to be a starter. You're going to place Kevin De Bruyne. You're going to be competing for a treble every year. You're going to be playing under the best manager of all time. All those things convince a player. Done. I get that. But as a club, especially this one, who has proven that they don't give a shit about the players and how they feel, I do not care if you're convinced by the project. You are worth 120 million to my club. That's what you need to go for. Plain and simple. And maybe it's a different fee, but I guarantee you the fee was not 55.
No.
You're going to say there's add-ons. Of course there's add-ons. And yes, we do it to reduce the fee that we give to the other team. But, as money grows and that fee grows, the amount you still take home also grows. So
right.
55 is offensive to the fans. It's offensive to the club. And it shows the rest of the world that we're stupid, and you could give us these shitty offers, like 10 million from Chelsea for Mike Maignan, like 15 million from Atletico for Theo Hernandez, like probably 60 for Leao that we're going to be offered from Bayern Munich. It sets a bad example.
60 mil for Leao is not that bad of a deal. I would take that. To be honest,
I wouldn't be happy.
God, you're not in management.
Yeah.
That's my rant.
I think there's an untold story to this transfer that we just don't know about, because it seems
a gambling
like
addiction.
We are just freaking idiots. What?
An incoming gambling ban or something. That
yeah,
yeah.
The only thing I could think of is before he renewed, he said, I might want to play in the Premier League. So if a top Prem club comes in, I'll renew, but I want to accept it. And they say, yeah, fine, then let's renew you so that we can get the most money out of it. Like that, I don't understand.
55 is not the most money, though. They could have easily gotten 80.
Yeah,
easy.
And they might get 80 with the bonuses, but the reason they're bonuses is because they're not guaranteed. And you can say, well, they're easy, but nothing's easy in sports. What if match day 1 of the Club World Cup, he has a horrific injury and he's out and he doesn't play anymore? No bonus.
We got a good deal. I'd say because
we didn't, because he wouldn't be there if he was with us. He wouldn't have been at the Club World Cup for that game,
and he wouldn't have been injured. Yeah, then he'd regret his decision. Yeah, I get it. I think there's been a really, really emotional response to this, and it's very understandable because you never want to lose your best players, and he is one of our 2 best players. Some would argue he was our best player last season. With the numbers that he put up, he was the best in his position in the league, 15 goals. And as mentioned, plenty of leverage on our side, a 5-year contract still. We were told by Giorgio Furlani that we didn't have to make any sacrifices. Sorry, he said that before the last game of the season. We were also told in early April by Geoffrey Moncada, when he got asked about Reijnders' future, he said it's 100% with us. Well, Clearly, it was not, So that doesn't help because people instantly dig out the receipts, and you don't have to go very far back. You just have to go a couple of months back to find two of our directors saying he ain't going anywhere, basically. Or certainly Moncada said that, and then Furlani kind of fuels the idea that he might stay. Now, people are pointing out that also is for leverage. Like our City are in talks for a long time. Let's be honest. Don't be naive enough to think that everything is done above board in football and that Reijnders only found out that he was wanted by Man City on the day that the fee agreed. That's not how it works. In fact, there are a couple of sources that are saying that Reijnders actually agreed personal terms with City the day before the Atalanta game, which is quite a way back. That wouldn't surprise me because I think that the agent tapping up and stuff, as much as we want to presume that it doesn't happen and almost pretend that it doesn't happen, it does happen. So he's potentially had his head turned early. There are so many things that stack up in City's favour in terms of what they're able to offer him that nobody is blaming him for turning this opportunity down. Right? He's got a very young child. And it's an opportunity to set his family up with the contract in the prime of his career. He's going to nearly triple his salary to go there. He can play in the Champions League. He unfortunately has to swap Milan for Manchester, but maybe he'll like Oasis or whatever. I don't know. But he won't like the weather, I'll tell you that much. But
he spent his whole off season in Sardinia, right?
Yeah, and in Como, he had a little trip to Como. So
he's not going to enjoy Manchester.
I don't think so. But yeah, but there's all that. Honestly, City is an attractive project, even though they didn't win a trophy last year. We know that they've got the money to burn. And I think that all of that has naturally led the player to be enthusiastic about the move. Now, there's enthusiasm up to a point of not submitting a transfer request. He's not said, I'm not playing for you anymore. I want to leave. I don't think he'd do that. I think he genuinely is a professional in the way that he would have waited to see how things turned out. But I do think that all sides can apply pressure on Milan to be like, we need this done before the Club World Cup. Otherwise, the offer's not going to be there anymore. I genuinely believe that might have been what was being said. So even though we've got all this leverage, you can still be backed into a bit of a corner here if everyone's saying we've got to get this done. Here's the offer on the table. And also, now I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here because I personally believe that the fixed amount should have been somewhere in the 70-75 million range. Yeah. Arguably and ideally more for us. I really think that we should be getting guaranteed 80 million with some easy bonuses in there because I think that that's what he is genuinely worth. For example, he turns 27 in about a month, does Reijnders. So he's not a 22-year-old. I get it. You're not getting that half decade of them build up to the prime and stuff, which makes
you don't get that anymore anyways. So
you do, but for example, people are pointing at the Enzo Fernandez fee, the Moises Caicedo fee, and stuff like that's why that's 120 mil. It's because you've got 10 years of them, whereas with Reijnders, we might be looking at 3 or 4.
No, but he's already in the prime, right? Like you don't have to develop him at all.
Yeah,
it's already been
done.
What
you're getting.
Well, that's almost another spin-off, but I think there will be a period of adaptation to the Premier League for Tijjani Reijnders. I think
probably.
I think he could struggle initially, but anyway. So yeah, you've got I would rather it be a higher fixed fee, but there is a reason. And I know that people are going to roll their eyes at this, but just bear with me. There is a reason, and I ain't wearing the nerdy glasses doing the sums and the accountancy shit. But bonuses are important in this particular deal, and the reason that it's bonus heavy. The reason that it's bonus heavy in this particular case, I think, helps us. So first of all, 2024-25, our financial year it's not a bad one. With the fee that we bank for this, because it will be before July the 1st, so it'll be this financial year, the fee that we bank with this will take us into a healthy profit. That's good news. 2025-26, we are fucked because we're missing 80 million euros from European competitions. Mm-hmm. Now, we can all sit here and say, yeah, but we were told that we don't need to do this. And yeah, but we're told we're financially healthy, blah, blah, blah. We were, but that's why Champions League was so important. We are fucked for that year as it stands. Unfortunately, that's the fact of the matter.
Yeah, the leadership, ownership just showed their cards that making a profit is more important than finishing for Champions League, and they're willing to sell their best player to make sure that we meet the bottom line. That's just what it is.
I mean,
No.
yes, we're going to be bad for next year. I think everyone knows that in financial terms. Who knows? Maybe we have the greatest season ever, and the whole conversation doesn't matter. But financially, it's going to look bad, and that's why they had to do it. But we are out of FFP, and now we do have a 3-year period to worry about. So the one way to look at it is, okay, we take the hit this year, and then we're just really strict the next 2 years, or we sell one person this year, and then we could be a little less strict the next 2 years, and it's good. And either way, it's going to have to balance out to make sure we're good, as long as we have like a slight profit, or no, a deficit less than 65 million, I believe, is what we need. Correct?
Yeah, in the aggregate. And this is, I think, one of the important things that people need to realize is that recording a small profit in a particular year is good. It sounds good. But now we've moved on to this 3-year accounting period, thinking last year we made a small profit. This year we're going to make a small profit. Can afford quite a big loss next year, right? And that's all well and good. And we are on course for that big loss by missing out on all the European revenues. Mm-hmm. We're on course to miss out on 80 to 100 mil based on the estimates. That would take us very close to that threshold of a 60 mil loss. And then we're straight back in to that settlement agreement if we breach it. But that's not even the problem. We can record it's meant to be about a 15 million profit for this year, and we record the huge loss for next year. Then what if next season doesn't go well and we're not back in the Champions League? We're looking at another big loss, and then we really are in the shit. Then we really are having to make sales as a necessity. So as much as the management have said it's not necessary to make sacrifices, I do think there is a cash injection point of view on this. And as much as people are saying sell other players, then can't you sell Okafor, Adley, Pobega, Loftus-Cheek, Musa, and make up the same amount of money? Can you fuck? Don't be so stupid. It doesn't happen that way. Why do you think all these players are on loan with an option to buy, and none of those options to buy are getting used? They're all coming back. Why? Because they're shit. You don't get handouts in football. They're not going to take shit off our hands for 20 mil a piece while we laugh to the bank.
Well, and that's the thing too, is the clubs that will offer you money for those are the clubs the players won't go to, because they're like, why would I leave Milan's bench where I'm getting paid well to not do anything to go play in, a second division or first division in some shit country? Like, they don't want to do that. That's why.
Or go fight for survival in Serie A. Right.
Yeah.
That's why Origi is still on the books. $4 million a year. One of the most expensive players we have. He'll be paid more than Modric if that deal gets done.
He is still on our books. He's not gone yet.
Oh yeah.
No, he doesn't show up to practice. He doesn't play for the Futuro. He doesn't play for Primavera. He just lives in Milan. He might not even live in Milan anymore. Honestly, he might fucked off back to wherever he wants.
He had like a sighting at a restaurant the other month, and everyone lost their shit because it's like, oh my god, he does still exist. Everyone wondered if he just fucked off to America or something. But yeah,
cancel his contract.
We can.
Might cost us more.
Yeah, it probably would cost us a decent penalty. But you've got to do it, right? Once you get within a year, it's worth it just to save on the wages. Yeah. But anyway, just to round up on the financials for Tijjani, that's the reason that the deal is so bonus heavy, is because we need to try and get a bit of that payment deferred into the year that we're really in shit, basically. So that will help us out for next year. And that's why it might be 15 mil bonuses, potentially 20 mil bonuses that come in down the line. Mm-hmm. But that's still useful for our cash flow. And cash flow is important because you want to get by with actual revenues rather than relying on injections of capital from the ownership. Yeah. So, to have a bit of extra money coming in from the transfer down the line does help us. Now, I am not using that to excuse the overall package fee that we got. I'm not using that to excuse the low fixed fee that we got, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others. I'm just saying that's why I think the operation was structured in that particular way. And also, as I mentioned, I think the most expensive 27-year-old ever is Rodri, who went for 100 million, which was his release clause. And of course, Rodri now plays at Manchester City. Is Reijnders close to the player that Rodri is?
Hot take, I think he's better. I've never been impressed.
Rodri's a Ballon d'Or winner.
He shouldn't have been. He's a Ballon d'Or thief.
Yeah, I do think he was a thief. I don't think Reijnders is better, but I also don't think he's half as good.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
No, that's very, very true. I agree with that. But I think for those people who are saying it's 100 mil plus, I think that City will be looking at it and be like, we're not paying the same as we paid Rodri. Come on. But Rodri's older now and he's had that ACL injury, so we should say, You know, you need
You
a bit
need
of
a
cover.
Rodri replacement.
Yeah, you need a bit of
You
cover.
just lost
Now
De
they're not the
Bruyne.
same player as well, admittedly. But I think prior to Rodri, it was Luis Suarez when he left Liverpool for 81 million. So
Yeah.
like